Today we're diving into the Lighthouse map, specifically focusing on the chalets and how you can maximize your profits to make millions in just a few minutes. Starting off with the first chalet, there are a lot of high tier loot spawns in this house, so be warned you might have to face a lot of PvP here. I recommend having a red rebel to make extracting easier and safer through the mountain pass extract, but if you don't have one, don't worry, in a couple runs of this guide you will have more than enough rubles to buy one off the fleet. So depending on where you're coming from, I'm going to have it highlighted on the map, but this is the top side where you come from the road down here. There's a PMC spawn down there, but if you come from down there, I like to hit up here first because there's a safe right here. There's also like a loot spawn here, and now we head into the garage. So once I'm done over there, I like to check right here on this rag. There's a valuable loot spawn right there, and on here right next to the knife. Sometimes the items do spawn and fall through the ground and they're down here, so you want to look down there too to see if you hit that. If you get that perception dot. There's also some technical spawns right back here next to this sheet or blanket, whatever you want to call it. There's a tank battery spawn on this toolbox. I like to always open this back, and there's always good attachments right here, but there's also a toolbox spawn right here. You can hit that. Now this is an offline raid, so the loot's going to be worse, but there's some valuable spawns all over this place, on this ironing board, on top of the washing machines, on this rag, and sometimes items also tend to fall through, and I like to look down here for that perception dot. Now heading into the kitchen, there's a lot of food spawns over here, which I don't really check too much, but I like to glance over to see if I see any moonshine. I'm not sure if it could even spawn there. There's rare loot spawns on these couches right here. Sometimes, like I said, they fall through, so you want to check under just to make sure. And on this table, you never know what you can find. Right here, I found a couple of bitcoins too before. So now moving into the bedrooms on the main ground floor. There's a duffel bag in here. There's a valuable loot spawn on this little end table. Now coming in here, there's a med bag. Probably like this one here. I don't really hit this bag too much. There usually tends to be a jacket right here on this coat hanger. There's med spawns right here on this end sofa and on this sink. Doesn't hurt to loot this jacket. There's some ammo spawns there and there, I believe. Coming up here, I like to check this whole little table right here. And then the pool table has a lot of various loot spawns on top of it. I like to loot this little weapon crate too. And on here on this box, I usually find like Veritas guitar picks. They're hidden inside of the fold of the box, so you have to like look in there for the perception dot. And I like to check this box too. I'm not sure if they can even spawn there, but there's also a little provision spawn right there. Now that's the ground floor covered, so let's go down into the basement. So in here there's some weapon crates. I always like to loot the weapon crates because there's a lot of attachments that you can sell for a lot on the fleet. Also, if you're looking for Ishkas, they can spawn in these black weapon boxes, as you can see there. I like to hit this room on the left because there is some technical spawns and a intel spawn on one of these couches, so I like to look around. And with the new changes to loot, the whole dynamic thing, you know, I like to look around the whole room because stuff can spawn anywhere now. To check this couch for valuables, same on these little end tables right here. Sometimes the loot, you won't be able to see it because it's going to be under the magazine, but if you hover over it, there would be a white dot, which is called the perception dot, and you'll be able to hover over it until you find something and you can pick it up. Coming in here, there's not much in this room. There's usually like a duffel bag here. In this one, there is a couple medical spawns. I usually just tend to hit this crate and leave. Like I said, with the new loot changes, loose loot is very interesting to find. So this floor is basically done. There's not much here besides like maybe a couple provision spawns here in this room, which I don't really check for. But coming down in here, this is where the good stuff is at. I tend to find a lot of good loot on this body right here. There's a couple loot spawns. You can spawn right here on the head or right here in the torso. I find like a bunch of vertexes, you know, SGC 101s, military cables, stuff like that. I like to check these sun chairs. There's a lot of injectors that can spawn here, especially of morphine. I found a couple of my morphine here. But this crate over here especially I like to look into because I found so much like top tier loot in here. It's a really good crate to check. But once I'm done, I like to loot over here. There's you see a military cable spawn here. A lot of other high tier loot can spawn right there. And there's also some loose technical spawns around here, so I like to keep an eye out. A lot of people tend to forget to loot this little house right here, but there's a couple provision spawns and a high loot spawn on this table. So I like to just glance over it again, you know, check under the couch or check under the seat, check on the ground and everything, because this loose loot now is something. Not all the time, but if there's not too much loot in the house, I like to come down here. There's some weapon parts right here that you can find. In here, there's a little toolbox, and there's weapon crate. Obviously, hit. There's also some more weapon parts right here, and a intel spawn right here on the table, if I'm not mistaken. Some more weapon parts right here. You'll be surprised. You'll find a lot of good weapon parts. You can vendor on the fleet for a lot. Then over here, there's another toolbox right here. A med bag. I like to loot these because they have a lot of good stuff. There's another black weapon box there. Around these bodies you can find a lot of medical spawns. There's a dead scav there. More medical spawns on these bodies. So if you spawned on the south side, I'd hit this little tent area first and then come up, loot that, and then go up to the house, check that, and then go to the back and then loot the house. It's all about efficiency. You want to get in and get out before the player scavs spawn in, because once they start swarming you, it's over. Especially with like other PMCs, you know, sometimes if a PMC sees you there before them, they might leave and not fight you. Once you're done looting all that, you can come over here and take the Red Rebel extract. Usually you'll be full, so I don't tend to hit the blue house at the same time. So you can come over here and you can take the Mountain Pass extract. Obviously, I forgot to bring a paracord with me. Don't be like me. As far as loot, you want to bring a decent gun. So if you do get into any PvP and some armor, you can bring some rat gear. Doesn't matter, but at least a decent sized bag so you can fit all the stuff in there in one of these, you know. But yeah, the loot is so crappy because we're in an offline raid. They do decrease the spawn rates in offline raids. Now the second chalet isn't my go-to loot spot, but you can still make a lot of ruble from it. I do recommend that you buy the USEC first safe key and the USEC second safe key. They're both around 80k rubles each on the flea, so you should get both of them because there's a lot of loot spawns you can get in them. Now the main goal isn't to be greedy. I usually find more than enough loot by looting one of the houses. As I said in my streets looting guide, survival rate is more important than obtaining the most loot. But it's still a pretty good place to hit regardless. There's some technical spawns in here. I like to loot the garage first because there's a lot of technical spawns all over right here and on the ground, and on these shelves right here I found a lot of water filters. I like to come upstairs and hit the second room right here because there is an intel spawn on this desk or on this shelf, one or the other. There's also valuable spawns here and a duffel bag. As you can see, not good stuff, but we're in an offline raid. And in this room right here, there's a valuable loot spawn on this chair, so you want to go ahead and check that too. And you come down, open this door. There's a black weapon box right here. There's a medical bag. I forgot to mention there's also an intel spawn right here on top of this table on that newspaper. So come over here, you know, there's usually a jacket on one of these posts that I like to loot too. There's armored repair kits right here, so if they ever fix them, you know, it'll be worth a lot. Like last wipe, they're around 2-3 mil a piece, and I found like 3 of them on this shelf. And there's not much loot in here. There's a couple provision spawns all over the counters and this jacket. So coming outside, that's where stuff starts to get a little bit better. There's a couple technical loot spawns on top of this material, and in this broken crate there is a high loot tier spawn right here, so you want to make sure to look in there because it could be a Bitcoin. Make sure you don't get that white dot. And then coming into the resort, there's a bunch of provision spawns, and I found some loot spawns right here, some high loot spawns. I don't tend to find them that often, and they're not listed in the wiki, so they might be a pretty rare spawn. And coming outside, there's some food spawns right here. I don't really check this room, it's not worth it. There's this weapon box. So coming into this pool room, there is some medical supplies right here that you can find all over these places, and there's a medical supply box right there. There's ammo spawns over here and some provision spawns. I usually tend to just skip those, you know. I just come in, loot that. There's a duffel bag that can spawn right here. There's also some like technical spawns right here on this table right in that corner. There's some weapon spawns on this couch. I never really find anything. If you get these stocks, you want to make sure there's not a butt pad like this one right here. You see how there's a butt pad? This one vendors on the flea if it's found in raid for a ridiculous amount, so you want to make sure to take that off. So now we open this door and go in here. There's a grenade box, or an ammo box. There usually is a dead scav right here. He always spawns for me. I'm not sure if it's a 100% spawn. So now going upstairs, this is where the actual good stuff is at. So you head over here, you hit a left, and then another left. There is some valuable loot spawns right here on this little table. And you come up the stairs, there is a weapon box that nobody ever really hits. Again, the loot's crap because I'm in an offline raid. So then you head down the hall, and there's a safe right here that you can open. I don't have the key right now, but there's you open it like physically, and there's some valuable loot in the safe, and there's another weapon box. And inside this little box right here, or this little nightstand, there is some electronic spawns on there, so you can check those. And in the restroom, there's some household items that you can find. I usually don't look inside of the restroom. I just check the safe, the box, and then the nightstand and see if there's any good stuff on there. Then I come across the hall. So I tend to ignore the left room because there really isn't nothing. There's a jacket that can spawn sometimes. You come down this hall, open this door, and you will need another key. I'll have it on screen. But you can open this safe, and there's physically like an item in there that you can loot. And so nobody ever opens this door, but there's a duffel bag there that you can get some good stuff from. There's also another electronic spawn right here under this TV on this little table. And coming over here, there's another electronic spawn right here. That's really it for the upstairs. There's not much to loot in this house besides these other little two domiciles. So if you come over here, there's a lot of provision spawns right here. There's some health spawns on this little chair. And there's a fuel spawn near this chimney. I've never found it, but apparently it's there. I like to look in every single one of these seeds for a high value loot spawn. I've got a lot of like bitcoins. There's also a little weapon box back here. If you get these little rigs, it doesn't hurt to just put your stuff in there and fill it up and then take it, because I mean it's the same size as the stuff you already had. You add a little bit more rubles per slot. So now coming across, there's also this little house right here. There's not that much loot spawns, but if you care about med spawns, there's a couple in here. So you open the door and come in and just go straight to the right. There's only provision spawns out here. So there's loose loot here. There's medical items on this little table down here. And there's also a little med bag you can loot. Wow. So the last thing is a toolbox right here next to the generator. There's also a little fuel conditioner spawn at the base of the generator if you're still doing Blood of the War. So that's basically it for the Blue Resort. Once I'm done here, I like to leave through the Mountain Pass extract. Like I said, if you have a Red Rebel, you should bring it. So you come back up the hill from the blue house and you just come out here and hit the extract, you see. So overall the loot wasn't the greatest, but this is an offline raid, and you know, you'll get better loot in a real raid.